playing a critical role in understanding the types of skills that we need to be supporting from SETA's perspective. So public policy, the understanding of public policy and the intent for us is actually quite important. The skills development sector, just looking at SETAs as a system, as I've indicated, we have a very critical role to play. And that role in particular would then mean the identification of the skills. We're talking technology, we're taking all these new things that are coming as a result of these 4IR. How do we then get to understand what are the changes in the skills at the skills level? Research becomes important to identify designing, developing and deploying occupational qualifications becomes important. But these qualifications are quite critical, that the public understands that we are advocating for accredited qualifications to be used. We have got a lot of short courses, not accredited, that people actually do. But I think for us as people and leaders that are in the system, we really believe that it is absolutely critical for us to encourage our young people, private service providers, to make sure that if they want to get into the space of skilling, of training, of education, accreditation is the first call. Because we are talking about the target audience that might not actually know what is happening. The target audience that might just be looking to have a certificate, but we know that it does not end there. In fact, a certificate, it is just the first phase of the process. So making sure that we have got these occupational qualifications and these are accredited is important. And from there, we are able to say, this is how we are now going to match what we call the shortage of skills or shortage of relevant skills. But industry plays a critical role in coming and saying, the advent of 4IR, we are seeing artificial intelligence, we are seeing digitization of our work, we are seeing a number of other technologies that are being developed. What are the skills that are sitting there? Out of these skills, we then say, what type of qualifications do we need to develop? And then we then get with the accreditation of those, and we can then be able to say, industry, we have these, let's match the gaps and let us proceed. There's no doubt that attracting the skills the public and private sector needs is vital if we are to increase productivity and economic output and get the economy back on track. Productivity is indeed a key factor driving long-term economic growth and increasing living standards. In terms of the labor market, productivity growth is essential in creating quality jobs, since increased labor productivity can lead to higher income, wages, better working conditions, and more investment in human resources. It therefore provides a sustainable route out of poverty. So today's discussion is important because education and skills development are the backbone, in my view, of improving and sustaining productivity in companies, in increasing income, in making sure that we restore social dignity of our people, our young people, in rural areas, township areas, etc. Without a workforce that is continually acquiring new and improved skills, it is difficult for a country to become competitive globally because our companies will not be competitive. When it comes to human resources development and training and development, the International Labour Organization's resolution says education and training are a means to empower people, skills included. Improving the quality and organization of work, enhance citizen productivity, raise, as I've indicated, raise workers' income and promote job security, social equity and inclusion. And this, I think, is also covered in our BEE Act. This means by investing in people through skills development and training, enterprises benefit from increased productivity and ultimately serves to make the country more competitive in our integrated world. I'll just quickly touch on FPNM SETA because from the 21 SETA, there's a lot of work that's been done by the SETAs. And I know that there's been a lot of criticism in terms of what the SETAs are doing, but there is indeed a lot of intelligence and a lot of results, both quantitative and qualitative, in terms of work that the SETAs are actually driving. FPNM SETA is responsible for 13 subsectors. Those subsectors are clothing, footwear, forestry, furniture, general goods, leather, packaging, printing, print media, publishing, pulp and paper, textile, wood product sectors. And we, as a SETA, we got amalgamated from 3 SETAs to actually establish FPNM SETA. We are among the best performing SETAs. We are sitting at 100% in terms of performance. We are sitting on a clean audit opinion. And many other SETAs are actually doing that well. And I think it's important that these messages will communicate in such events, because it's an opportunity for us to spread the word, the good word, and be able to say, but together we can do even better and we can do more. FPNM SETA, so as a contribution to economic development to the country, FPNM SETA employs approximately 431,000 people as a sector, okay, as FPNM sector. And this is approximately 25% of 1.7 million employed in the manufacturing sector. So it's quite a number of people that we are serving as FPNM SETA. The SETA, since 2011 to date, we have trained up to over 124,000 individuals. These are individuals that have benefited in our initiatives from your learnership, artisans, skills programs, bursaries, etc. And I think there was a very important point that said, so what? So we do follow the money, we do follow the training, and the SETA landscape has got that model in place, where monies are followed in terms of whether the skills interventions that we are supporting are making an impact. So from research, on average, all the learners that we have, that we are funding, 63% of them get absorbed. But specifically, 71% of these learners that are participating in our interventions in the learnership area, 71% are absorbed by the employers. In the artisan space, we have got 70% absorbed by industry. This has been, for us, quite a huge success, because it brings yet another spin to the discussion to say, where is the private sector? No, the private sector is in the picture. The private sector is playing a role, because we have been engaging and negotiating young people's entry into employment. We do see most of employers being keen to actually participate and actually come on board. But we want to encourage more companies to open more doors, while we are cognizant of the fact that because of the technological changes, things are a bit difficult, things are a bit, things have actually changed. So just quickly looking at what research has communicated to us as skills that are in high demand. Because these are the skills that young people should be focusing on. And these are the skills that industry comes and says, these are the skills that we need for us to either restructure our businesses or to revitalize our businesses. If we have this type of skills, then we can be able to recover. So just to name a few of those. The first one is information technology and telecommunications directors. IT specialist managers, IT project and program managers, IT business analysts, architects and systems designers, web design and development professionals, programs and software development professionals. As I've already indicated, we have more skills that are emerging due to these global technological changes. Coupled or together with these, which are critical and key, we cannot undermine the importance of personal qualities, behavioral skills, like communication skills, planning skills, customer management skills, and all of that, because those then also add value and play a critical role in making sure that an individual becomes whole in driving their careers. Best practices, I will also just at high level, just share what we believe are best practice based on experience. You cannot do anything and talk about a skill until you do your research. Your research should then be able to give you some kind of a strategy that you'll develop to respond to whatever gap that you would have identified or needs that you would have identified from a skills perspective. That then the strategy we then need to have our plan. That's why in the SETA space, we've got workplace skills plans, which are meant to help companies to then be able to go and implement their skilling and their training and support their skilling and training interventions. Those are also submitted to the SETAs for us to manage and also understand what are the emerging. We use that as desktop type of research to understand some of the emerging and new skills that are coming out. Over and above your face-to-face interactions that we normally have with interview to understand what skills do we actually need. For an example, now with these emerged new technologies, we have those conversations to say we need to come up with a strategy of government. What are the skills that we actually need from technologies that you guys are using? We need to maintain those technologies, for an example. So we'll look and we map out skills out of that and be able to come up with skills that would assist us in managing all these robots and all of that we are now seeing being used by a number of companies. So that is the first part. So the second part, I've said it will be then identification of those skills. And this really includes also understanding if we develop what is the objective is to fill this particular gap. Clearly setting out a plan, I've also already mentioned that, but what is also important there is that we need to then make sure that in this plan we include issues of race, gender, disability, so that we have got quite a comprehensive plan that then also satisfy the BE requirements, but going beyond that, the transformation agenda. And I think that should also translate into seeing these trained people taking senior positions. We had a discussion the other day and we said, I think as part of the training that we are investing in as SETAs and private sector, we really need to begin to see the investment, the results of this investment. While we have people getting into positions, we still have the higher occupations that are really not showing the transformation that we need to see. So I think that discussion is Commissioner, it still is very critical, there is still that gap where we are not seeing whether it's women or Black people in general, people with disability in senior positions, particularly in the private sector. For some reason, that shift is just not working. It's just not happening. I've been in transformation for a very long time, starting in the private sector until I joined government. We battled in boardrooms to get people promoted to senior positions. The discussion, the reason will be, but we don't have people that are qualified for these positions. But when they get trained, they still don't get promoted. So we need to find out what is the problem. There is a blockage because we are really not translating our skills investment into that economic transformation in the private sector. So that discussion for me is quite important. And therefore, the monitoring and evaluation, as I've indicated, becomes very important because the monitoring and evaluation says, so what? You've done the investment, you've designed occupations in that talk to learnerships, artisans, skills programs, bursaries, and so what? So that discussion is important. And my last part says we therefore would have to look at how we collaborate to be able to address these issues from a collective perspective. BBBEE compliance, we understand. Business say they understand. I think most of us, we are saying we do understand. But I think from my experience, what I've seen is that we are more worried about the BBBEE certificate. We get worried about the BBBEE certificate and the BBBEE certificate is expiring and how do we maintain the position. But I think there's a process that most companies ignore. And they talk about BBBEE certificate when it's time for the certificate to be renewed. And I'm not so sure, but I think that should be part of the discussion that says that should then be looked at when there is an opportunity for the policy to be reviewed, to say how do we really make it much more meaningful? We know there was a review, but I think there's always an opportunity for us to say, what is it that is now not working? We have skills development, which is critical, which is the backbone of transformation, which was expanded, fantastic. But what else? What then? Why are we not seeing this upward mobility? There's huge investment. If we just look at the SETA's balance sheet combined, it's huge investment. But where are the people? So these are the things that I think we need to begin to look at, to say from a quantitative perspective, I can sit and tell you that I'm sitting at 100% performance. But from a qualitative perspective, when we're talking best practice, we need to then be able to say, indeed, the investment has yielded these results tangible to this corporate has got these people, this corporate has got those people, and those people we have got a very clear pipeline as to how do we then make sure that a succession plan is in place to replace those people. Not play a yo-yo. We have a Black person in a senior position. When they move, we go right back where we were at in the first place. So we need to be able to sustain those, the positive results, if any. Where we don't have, I think it's important that we have those discussions that should then begin to form, begin to inform the mandate for the review of the policy. So BBBEE compliance for me, we are understanding it from, and I'm arguing it from a position of change and meaningful transformation, which requires a balance between quantitative results and qualitative results. And I've indicated we need to see those people. We want to see HRD policies talking to promotions in organizations, and we want to see some kind of the implementation, that monitored implementation of those, so that they can give us the expected results. So as I move towards closure, when we are looking at best practice, just in summary, I believe that research, development, and innovation is key. It's the first key driver. There's nothing we can do without that. Benchmarking is very, very important. Second element that we need to look at. But willingness to learn, because we can come up with these brilliant documents, policies, and all of that. But if we are not willing to learn and shift as we implement, we will not be able to change the status quo. Adaptability to change because of all these emerging new technologies, which are seen as threats, but others are seeing opportunities. I think either way, we need to be able to say, how do you then adapt and make sure that there's meaningful change and those are supported. Collaboration and teamwork is quite important because we then need to make sure that as sitters are now coming in the space or are in the space of skills development, how do you then collaborate with other entities, particularly in government, to make sure that that we don't duplicate the efforts, but we drive high impact. And we also advocate for investment in credible skills, skills that will deliver on entrepreneurship or employment, but not skills that will deliver in certification. Program Director, let me pause there before I spoil my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fedling. Really appreciate it. And the issue of certification comes up every now and then, that it's not just about that piece of paper. It must be actualized in meaningful production, either in the office, at a factory floor, or in society somehow. It must just be more than having people in a classroom and getting a piece of paper at the end. And I think that's a very important takeaway. Thank you so much, Doctor. Really appreciate it. We have a video ready, and we have a video that is going to be presented by Mr. Dumisani Mpafa. Mr. Dumisani Mpafa is chairperson of Association of BBBEE Professionals, also known as ABP. And in this presentation, we're exploring the question of proposals towards improved and effective skills development. I'm gonna ask all of us just to watch a video a little bit, and then later on, he will take and entertain questions on the said video. Is that right, sir? Yeah, thank you. We are ready, sir.
Thank you, Program Director, Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Mr. Ibrahim Patel, Deputy Minister, Ms. Numa Lungalokina, BBBEE Commissioner, Ms. Wanduli and her team, fellow panelists and speakers, BBBEE practitioners present, and conference delegates at large, good afternoon. It is my greatest pleasure to be addressing this conference on behalf of ABP. And ABP is the Association of BE Professionals. We primarily organize BE verification professionals and BE consultants. And I need to emphasize that we are the only SAQA recognized professional body in the BE space. Our primary mandate as ABP is to build public trust and confidence in the BE space. We are focused mainly on building solid ethics and ethical conduct amongst professionals, building competence-based professionals, but more importantly, professionalizing the industry. If there's any takeaway in my presentation today, is that our members voluntarily open themselves up for scrutiny, and you should ask yourself if your service provider is an ABP member. If your service provider, be it a BE verification agency or a BE consultant, is not an ABP member, we should start asking questions why they're not. This year's BE conference is themed Skills Development, What is at stake? We are pleased that the BE Commissioner has decided to focus and place the spotlight on skills development this year. You must remember that skills development is not only a priority element, the cause of good practice, but it is equally a critical element for human development and progress. Before I address this conference about our proposed approach to skills development or our proposed skills development model, I thought I should spend a bit of time just addressing what is at stake. as it is appropriately asked by the theme. For the longest time, we have used a GDP as the sole measure of development and rank nations of the world according to their GDP growth and so on. GDP has become less reliable in measuring progress and developments of nations. The UNDP created an alternative way to measure progress, and they developed what we call the Human Development Index. And so the nations of the world are measured and ranked according to their human development. I've decided to select 5 countries from the Human Development Report 2020 and contrast those 3 countries with South Africa so that I can draw your attention in terms of the relevance of skills development and skilled labor force. And I link this skilled labor force as a percentage of total labor force with unemployment first, and also I link it with income poverty line, the income poverty line being $1.90 a day. So these countries that I've selected, one is Norway. Norway is ranked number 1 in the Human Development Report 2020. Ireland is ranked number 2, which is the second country. And interesting that Ireland will be number 2. If you remember, they were part of what was referred as PIGS, those European countries that were not doing very well post the global financial crisis of 2007-2008. But they actually ranked number 2 in the Human Development Report 2020, which goes to tell you that GDP is not everything. And thirdly, I've got USA, which is ranked number 17. And interestingly, they are the biggest in terms of GDP. And China, which is the second biggest, if they're not the first now, they are ranked number 85. We've got South Africa ranked at number 114. But let's start with Norway. Their skilled labor force as a percentage of their total labor force is 84%. So which means their total labor force, 84%, 84.3% to be exact, is skilled labor. In Ireland, 85% is skilled labor. USA, 96% is skilled labor. If you look at South Africa, skilled labor is 52%, which is far, far lower than those 3 countries. Now, I'm contrasting the first 2 and USA for a good measure. But if you look in terms of unemployment rate, if you look at unemployment rate in Ireland, it's 3.3%. And if you look at unemployment rate in Ireland, it's 4.9%. And the unemployment rate in USA is 3.7%. But if you look at unemployment rate, this is now pre-COVID, because I didn't want to dilute the discussion here. South Africa is 28% pre-COVID. It could be higher than 28% as we speak now. Now, that tells you something, that when there's higher levels of skilled labor, there's less unemployment. Secondly, we contrast skilled labor force with income poverty line, that $1.90, those who live below the $1.90 a day. So in Ireland, again, remember, we said Norway, which is number 1, their skilled labor force is 84%. The population that lives below the income poverty line is 0.2%. 0.2%. Ireland is 0.1%. USA is 1.2%. Guess how much in South Africa? Is 18.9%. So there's always a relationship between the income poverty, the unemployment, and the skilled labor. So which goes to show that skills development is a very critical element of the BBBEE scorecard. But let's talk about how, as South Africans, have we prioritized skills development. Starting from the Bill of Rights in the Constitution of South Africa, which is the supreme law of the land. It states that everyone has further education. So you can see that there is prioritization of learning and development. But also, government has done a bit in terms of the legislative framework to improve the supply of skilled labor force. There's the Skills Development Act, which was published in 1998, which sought to establish the new regulatory framework for promoting and developing skills in the economy. But later on in 1999, the Public Skills Development Levies Act that provides for of 1% of employees' total cost to be paid to SARS. Now, whilst the majority of unskilled labor force is mainly Black and in particular Africans, it was quite surprising to many that the Skills Development Act was and is still BEE neutral. That means it didn't prioritize the training of Blacks. However, the saving grace was the BEE Act, which was promulgated in January 2004 and sought to prioritize skills development of Black people who deliberately denied learning and development opportunities because of our past. Now, it's also very important to note that even in the NDP, National Development Plan, that there is some prioritization of skills development and learning. The NDP emphasized the need for integration of theoretical learning with practical learning, and also emphasized the establishment of closer linkages between employers and education and training institutions. So you can see that there is, at a conceptual level, the legislative level, some prioritization of training. Now, the big question is why have we not advanced in terms of impacting on skills development? Now, this legislative framework has created theoretically a lot of money that could be used for training. Now, owing to the Skills Development Levies Act, the total levy, again, pre-COVID times, that is collected is about 15.3 billion. That 1%, and that 15.3 billion have already, discounted the admin cost, admin expenses that goes to the SETA administration and so on. So 15.3 billion is actually available for training in terms of the Skills and the Levies Act, which is then distributed through the SETAs. But also in terms of the BEE Act, measured entities are required to spend 6% of their levy amount on skills development. And that's unlocking, in terms of my calculation, about a further 105 billion rand, which is broken down as follows. For general skills spent on certified skill program, 3.5%, which is 61.3 billion, available for skills development. Bursaries, about 43.7 billion that is available. Now, with the development that has been happening in the recent past, in fact, it happens every year at the beginning of the year when universities open. There's always a struggle about access to higher education. There's about 43.7 billion that is available in terms of the BE that could be spent on BE, and of course, skill spend on people with disabilities about 300 million that is available. In total, we have about 120 billion annually that is available for training and skills development. Now, the question is, with that kind of money, why have we as a country been able to move in terms of advancing and developing a skilled labor force? With that money, why do we still have about 47.8% of our labor as unskilled labor force? In a world driven by knowledge economy, you cannot be competitive with such high unskilled labor force at 47.8%. The only guaranteed results is unemployment if we have that high unskilled labor force. And we all know that for the economy to grow, we need to have more skilled labor. So as a country, we are called upon to drive the massification of skills development. Our theory of change as ABP, the problem statement, which is a starting point, is that the B scorecard has been criticized for promoting a tick box exercise. An approach basically that hinders the very same progress that we want to achieve in terms of BEE. It has become custom for many companies to undertake initiatives that are easiest and most cost effective to them, and they will simply help them to achieve the sought after points and achieve compliance levels, but with minimal impact on the ground. Now, the money that is spent on skills and the money theoretically that should be spent on skills is not commensurate with the skilled workforce that we have in the country. And we, in terms of what theory of change, we couch this in different forms. The first one, which creates this lack of impact, is that there's a grudge purchase or malicious compliance. which is basically the drive to invest in training to obtain BE points or to comply with BE because of the requirement. And companies fail to connect the skills development investment to the lack of company growth, to advance their own company growth. And what we propose that every organization should take full ownership of skills development. So basically, skills development and workplace skills plan should be the competence of executive management. It should not be relegated to junior management. It should integrate with the organizational strategy. It should integrate with sector skills plan, which will be driven by sitters. So there must be a high level of prioritization of skills development. It should not be just be a compliance issue. Second issue that we've identified is the relevance of training program. A lot of training has taken place. A lot of people that have been trained that are in the street, but they are unemployable because the training that we've been implementing is irrelevant. So what we're suggesting, one, is that we need to identify specific programs that target new generation of academics and artisans who are not necessarily employees of the organizations, and also what we suggest is that there should be SETA pre-approved learnerships, apprenticeship and internship programs. These programs should be targeted at priority skills. So companies are not, expected in that environment to conceptualize and come with ideas in terms of what programs to train on and how to train on. These programs must be pre-approved, and it should be easier, for companies to just plug and play and implement on these skills. The other issue that we've identified is learner identification and monitoring. So what happens is that, because companies, they focus on their primary, objective. So they don't, they are not engaged in the recruitment of learners. And, they outsource that to the training provider. And the training provider will just recruit whoever is available. So the recruitment is not linked to the opportunities that are in the company. So even if a company is investing millions in terms of the training, but it's training people that they're not even interested in ultimately employing and recruiting. And we think that is a problem because now we're training people that we're not going to utilize. But what we are saying is that the recruitment for learners should be linked to employment opportunities, that are available in the company. So whatever, investment a company is making towards a training program, it must train people that it will employ, even if it doesn't have employment opportunities at the moment. But it should be people that consider, or candidates that consider them to be employable, or candidates that it will ultimately employ if they become, or they become competent in their field of study. The other issue is historical recruitment processes, which sometimes they tend to be discriminatory. We encourage that companies should link their workplace skills plan or workplace skills strategy with employment equity and affirmative action program, so that you align the development, the promotion, and the appointment of different diversified workforce. Also, the biggest issue has always been the absorption, that companies train these people, but they don't really absorb them. So this inability, to absorb could be informed by, a constrained, a business environment or constrained economic growth. But what we propose is that, even if the company has no capacity to absorb these individuals, there must be a proper, facilitation for employment opportunities for people that have been trained, tracking of these learners and providing, employment portals and linking those employees that have been trained in those employment portals. And that will actually increase the absorption rate of these learners. Our proposed holistic and integrated approach to massification of skills development starts at foundation. So we say at the foundation level, we must focus on STEM, which is basically science, technology, engineering, and maths. But also we're saying we must prioritize, early childhood development. And this investment at that level of education might require socio-economic development. It may not necessarily be under skills development area. But we're saying let's start at that level, because if you don't start at that level, it's often too late when you want to start at skills development at a tertiary level. So let's start at a foundation level. So the intervention there will be socio-economic development programs, but also it will be bursaries. But also we say TVET colleges and general college system, which include private colleges, investment in the development of lecturers, quality educators, but also providing access to bursaries for students. But also TVET colleges, that's where we can drive these artisans, and these technicians. So this is one big area that has been neglected, and we think we need to focus on. The intervention here will be through bursaries, internship, and apprenticeships. So companies should be using internships and apprenticeship and partnering with TVET colleges to drive that mandate. Higher education and training and research and innovation, again, focusing on undergraduates in terms of bursaries. I mean, the issue that is coming up again at higher education institutions where students are protesting, we're saying, if companies are availing bursaries, we might be able to mitigate that problem. But also we're saying there must be an investment in terms of development of Black academics, but also fostering industry and university partnership in research and innovation, because through research and innovation, we'll be able to develop and grow as a country. Last but not least, the occupational skills, the skilled workforce of skills for the growing economy. We need to develop artisans, we need to develop technicians, we need to develop engineers, and this can be done through leaderships, internships, and apprenticeship. So there is a space and opportunity within the skills development element to actually use that aspect of skills development, to actually develop, leaderships, internship, and skills development. In that way, we'll have a stronger skilled workforce. I thank you very much.
A round of applause, please, for Mr. Dumisani Mpafa. He's the chairperson of the Association of BBBEE Professionals, also known as ABP. I think he's given us quite a lot there, and the Human Development Index is something to look into a little bit closer than just your ordinary conventional GDP, and so that it speaks to our current circumstances. So thank you so much for your insight, really appreciate it. There will be an opportunity to ask him questions on what he has presented. So I'm gonna ask us just to note those, and especially those who are also joining us on Zoom and other platforms, feel free to contact us a little bit later on with the questions. And without any further ado, I'm going to ask us to pay attention to the presentation of Mr. Sibusiso Makalima. He is the MD, Managing Director of MNC Accounting Property Limited. And he's also looking at this very important question of proposals towards improved and effective skills development. Don't forget that this is in line with our theme, skills development, what is at stake.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sibusiso Makalima from MNC Accounting. We are here to present the best practices on practical implementation for BEE skills development. Our proposed model is based on which is a web-based application model. This model is proposed to record, or rather keep, the information of all the employers and all the learners, including all the various stakeholders in the industry. The purpose of this model is to promote the skills development sector and allow learners to participate in the skills development environment and improve their skills, especially in the upskilling and improving employability of the young people, including all unemployed South Africans, especially in the rural and disadvantaged communities. This proposal has benefits for all the relevant stakeholders, including the learners, the employers, the regulators in the industry, and the society as a whole. For the learners, this program will benefit them in a way that it will allow them to keep records of their. For the learners, this program will benefit them in a way that it will allow them to keep records of their academics, will keep records of their information and be able to access information that will allow them to apply for learnerships, information that will allow them to seek funding to further their studies, and information that will help them as a whole in order for them to improve their skills, especially focusing on the critical shortage of skills. The employers will benefit from this program by improving the skills within the industry. What it means basically is that if a number of learners are skilled and educated, the employers will be able to minimize the mismatch within the industry that currently exists right now. And also the employers will be able to retain their current staff members to minimize the unemployment and the loss of jobs that is currently occurring in the sector right now. This module will also improve the organization effectiveness and improve the organization's marketing strategies in order for the organizations or the companies to be well known within the communities. The regulators will benefit from this module by minimizing the of learners. As we all know that funding of learners is a big problem for the regulators like the Broad-Based BBBEE Commission, where employers will take learners to educate them, but not necessarily educate them, front with them, pay them money, but not necessarily train them or educate them. With this system, the learners will have an online portal that will help them keep record of what they have done with the employer, and that also applies to the employer. The employer will also have a system or a method of keeping records of what they have done for the information can be collaborated and used within the system, and that very same information can also be used to record or submit recordings that can be used by sitters across the country. And for the society as a whole, this module should benefit the society through economic growth, attracting direct foreign investment, and minimizing socio-economic issues. Ladies and gentlemen, the key objectives of this initiative is to promote the skills development initiative through the use of the website. The learners and employers and all the relevant stakeholders will be participating through this website. That will allow them to access information that is accredited, information that can be used for analysis and recording for the businesses. The second objective, ladies and gentlemen, is to advise unskilled people in the rural areas and poor communities to improve their numeracy and literacy skills to complete their grade 12 education. The third objective is to support learners that are left out in the system to secure employment. The fourth objective is to facilitate access to workplace training for graduates with NQF level to match the skills demand in various sectors of the labor market. And the last objective is to foster a partnership that will assist and make this initiative a success so that all the stakeholders come together to achieve one common goal. Ladies and gentlemen, the beneficiaries of this initiative are basically young unemployed individuals, specifically in disadvantaged communities and rural communities. I would also want to emphasize the segment of the beneficiaries that the initiative is targeting. Black youth between the ages of 18 to 35 who did not complete grade 12, the undergraduates who seek employment but do not possess work experience, and most importantly, the 35 to 45-year-olds who are what we call discouraged workers, people who have not had employment for a very long time, have no training, have no formal education, but are in the system. They count as the statistics of the people that are unemployed. The number is increasing every day. And if we can work together to fight this, the numbers can decrease. Ladies and gentlemen, the key drivers of this project are domestic market development. Here we aim to address the objectives of the National Skills Development, the New Growth Path, and the National Skills Development Strategy, so that we all come together to achieve one common goal. And on the internationalization part, ladies and gentlemen, this program, if we can work together to increase the number of skilled and educated individuals in South Africa, South Africa will be seen as a competitive country that has skills to assist employers in the workplace to achieve their goals. Operationally, this initiative is planning to use available resources to execute its plan. Basically, the organization can employ available infrastructure in local communities like your public schools, your municipal offices that can be used to set up skills and information career guidance centers. Those very same centers can be used to assist learners in rural and especially poor communities to access information about the skills development and, most importantly, opportunities about the learnerships. Financially, ladies and gentlemen, this program aims to assist learners. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a high number of learners and students in the country that cannot afford education. However, we cannot give everyone a free education. And as much as we can train everyone, we cannot employ everyone. However, if we can allow people to have hope, give them something to work on, I'm sure this country can be a better place. So in order for this program to work, we need to consider coming together and setting up a funding model that will assist those poor individuals who come from rural, deep in the rurals and the poor communities, to get assistance with finance or intuition to register and apply for further education and training, one way or the other, through the available institutions and regulators and the trainings of service providers that we have within the country. Ladies and gentlemen, this initiative can never succeed without the relevant industry stakeholders to assist in making sure that this initiative is implemented effectively and efficiently, and that it reaches the right beneficiaries in the right places and be able to enter the job market. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I want to emphasize that this initiative can have impact towards fighting the unemployment. Engaging the private sector will not only assist the learners who are unemployed, but also the employers who seek skilled workers to fit in their human resource needs. The participation of SETAs and the BBBEE Commission will assist in measuring the absorption of learners into the system and identifying potential learners to close the gap of shortage of skills. Analysis of the information collected from this initiative can be used for various things like reporting and research. We should assist the industry as a whole. Thank you.
So I observed that you realized how difficult it is to look at yourself. Then you thought, oh my goodness, me, I should have just presented. It's uncomfortable. Yeah. Yep. You should have asked us on radio. We never listen to ourselves because you sound completely different and you wanna. Thank you so much. But nonetheless, I think your insights were just spot on and very practical. And this is an opportunity for us now